Assalamualaikum and hi, I am Adriana. Introduce my group member. We prepared the case study for the chapter 3, thoughts, and chapter 4, arguments, conclusion, and reasoning. Introduction. This case study addresses a critical challenge in the digital age, the impact of social media on mental wellness and the necessity of critical evaluation. We apply the design thinking methodology to analyze Sarah Chan's struggle with anxiety, stress, and negative self-comparison stemming from her heavy social media use. The study pursues two interconnected goals: develop an intervention to dissect Sarah's recurring negative thoughts and prototype a practical, interactive framework for healthier thinking patterns. Critically evaluate an argument to analyze and ultimately construct a well-tested counter-argument to Marcus' position that social media should be banned for young people. By systematically apply the 5 design thinking stage: empathize, define, prototype, test. This analysis ensures solutions and arguments are human-centered, logically valid, and refined through evidence-based iteration.
Hi, my name is Alya. Today I want to present our case study in chapter 3 and chapter 4. For the first question, Sarah element of thought. For the first one, what are the things that hurt, disturb, or make Sarah's life difficult? She has been experiencing significant stress and anxiety for the past 6 months. She spends 6 to 8 hours daily on social media, which disrupt her routines. And 2. What is constantly on her mind? What is she worried about? She always worried that I am not as successful as my peer. Everyone else is happier than me. I must check my notification immediately. 3. What are action or habit does Sarah display? She spends 6 to 8 hours daily on social media. She constantly compares herself to others online. And for the last one, what are Sarah's main emotions? She feels stress, anxiety, inadequacy, fear of missing out or FOMO, and low self-esteem. For the question 2, reflecting thought, it has 4 categories. For the first one, emotional issue. Description of core problem is she spends 6 to 8 hours daily scrolling on social media. She always checks notification immediately, showing compulsive behavior. And the second category is cognitive issue. She believes I am not successful as my peer. Everyone else is happier than me. And the social category is social issue. She spends 6 to 8 hours daily scrolling on social media. She checks notification immediately, showing compulsive behavior. For the last one, behavior issues. She compares her life with other curated highlight reel. She felt pressure by social link expectation to appear happy and successful online. But we can suggest one solution to Sarah is how might we? Problem statement. It can help Sarah manage her emotion. We can teach her simple stress management technique like deep breathing and journaling. Second, it can help improve Sarah's thinking pattern. We can guide her to challenge negative thought and comparison with others and help her understand that social media is a highlight reel, not reality. For the last one, change unhealthy behavior. Sarah can set daily screen time limit or schedule. We encourage her to take digital break before sleep. For the question 3 is evaluating thought, creative technique or creative thinking technique. It has 3 thinking technique. For the first one, brainstorming. It can generating ideas on how Sarah can evaluate her negative thought, such as writing a journal or discussing with a friend. For the second technique is mind mapping. Sarah can drawing the relationship between thought, emotion, evidence, and reality to help Sarah see the pattern in her thinking. For the last one, worst possible idea method. Imagine the most unhelpful way to evaluate her thought. For example, ignore her emotion, then turning that approach into a positive and realistic way. The second thinking technique is evaluation criteria framework. Facts and assumption. It has 5 evaluating criteria framework. For the first one, evaluating criteria. relative question is this thought based on fact or assumption? Assumption of Sarah thought is everyone on social media is happier and more successful than me. The fact is social media only shows selective moment. Not everyone posts their life struggle. Logic versus emotion, and I'm thinking logically or emotionally. Emotion based thought, I feel anxious when I don't check my notification. Logically thought, notification do not determine my worth or safety. Evidence support, does the evidence support or refute this thought? Thought, I am not doing well compared to others. Evidence against, she has doing well in previous semester, and many posts online are edited. Impact on herself, does this thought help or harm me? Negative thought, this thought lower her self-esteem, causes stress, worsen her academic performance. Positive alternative is, if she challenges the thought, she can reduce anxiety and regain control over her study habit and mood. For the last one, alternative view. Is there another way to look at this situation? Original view is, if I don't post often, people will forget me. Alternative balance view, posting is optional, not a requirement. For the third creative thinking technique is evaluating Sarah's negative thought. She always thinks that I am not as successful as my peer, or the assumption emotional, it can lower self-esteem. Alternative for assumption is focus on personal achievement only. For the second that thought that Sarah always thought is everyone else is happier than me. Assumption emotional, it can cause anxiety or FOMO. Alternative issue of assumption is social media only show highlight. And in the last one, if I don't post regularly, people will forget me. Assumption emotional, it can pressure us to post anything. Alternative assumption, we can prioritize meaningful interaction only. For the question for an unhealthy thinking pattern, there have 3 unhealthy thinking patterns. For the first one is compulsive checking. The description of compulsive checking is repeatedly automatically accessing social media feed, increasing exposure to anxiety-triggering content and reinforcing a negative habit loop. For the second one is negative self-comparison. Sarah constantly comparing her real life against other idealized, curated online content, leading directly to feeling of inadequacy and self-criticism. For the last one is external validation seeking. The description is relying on social media metrics like comments as the primary source of self-worth. Low engagement lead to feeling of personal fail and increasing anxiety. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, the next slide is about prototype 1, which is about thought awareness checklist. This is example of thought awareness checklist of Sarah. Let me go through the first question. What am I thinking right now? My life is so boring and inadequate. I never go on trips like that, and no one cares about what I post anyway. I must be uninteresting and a failure. Is this thought based on facts or assumptions? It is assumption. So how this thought make me feel? I feel intense anxiety and stress about my status. I feel a knot in my stomach and tension in my shoulders due to the shame and pressure. So is this thought helping or harming me? Harmful. So the last question is, what is a more balanced way to think? This photo is a curated highlight reel, not reality. That person's life has struggles too. My value is not determined by the likes I get or where I travel. I choose to focus on my real life goals right now, like studying, which will benefit my future. So the next prototype is prototype 2, about decision tree, reality or reaction. So this is how the decision tree works. Firstly, when the negative thought appears, we need to think, am I reacting emotionally? If yes, we need to take a deep breath and ask if this real or just fear. If it's not, if no, we need to check the evidence so we can respond it rationally. So how can this prototype 2, which is decision tree, can help? Its main benefit is that it stops your brain from panicking instantly. Instead of letting the thought completely freak you out, the tree forces you to hit the pause button and ask, is this thought actually true right now, or is it just a drama queen reaction? By checking for real evidence, it helps you figure out if you need to study, take action, or just chill out, ignore the reaction, making you less stressed and more in control of your worrying. So the next prototype is prototype 3, which is about positive reframing journal template. Firstly, negative thought. That post I made didn't get many likes. I must be uninteresting and people don't care about me. So the evidence against it is 3 of my friends text me directly today, showing real personal interest in my well-being. And the new balanced thought is likes are a metric, not a measure of my worth. The people who truly care about me show it through personal connections, which are far more valuable than temporary digital engagement. Okay, the next point is about negative thought again. I waste an hour scrolling again. I have no self-control and I will never achieve my goals. So the evidence against it is I can choose right now to close the app and start on a goal, proving that I do have control in this moment. And lastly, about the new balanced thought, to facing it is one slip up doesn't erase my goals. I am aware of the habit and I choose right now to reset and refocus on my next productive task. I have the ability to change my behavior. And the last example is firstly about the negative thought. Everyone else seems so confident and successful in their careers, studies. I feel behind and I am sure to fail my next big project. So the evidence against it is we need to think success is a personal journey, not a race. Comparing my chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10 is unfair. So the new balanced thought is my feeling of being behind is a perspective, not a fact. I am focusing on my own growth and effort right now, and that consistent effort is the true measure of my progress, regardless of what others post online. Okay, so the next slide is about question 5. Methods to change negative thought patterns, which is test, teach, apply. This is comprehensive intervention plan. So the objective of this method is to help Zara replace negative thought patterns with positive and rational thought patterns. The focus of this method is to reduce social comparison, fear of missing out, and unrealistic thinking about herself. So the test period is about 4 weeks, which is divided into short-term, weekly, and a long-term, monthly phases. And the testing tools, which is prototypes. Firstly, thought awareness checklist, identify thoughts, reality or reaction decision tree, challenge thought, and the tree is positive reframing journal, replace thoughts. So lastly, about the feedback mechanism, by daily reflections journal, weekly self-assessment, and discussion sessions with peers or counselor. Okay, the next slide is about short-term experiments, which is weekly phase. So, first week is use the thought awareness checklist every time you feel anxious after viewing social media. So, the goal is to identify negative thought patterns and emotional triggers. So, the feedback about that is record feelings before and after evaluating the thought. So, The week 2 is use the reality. For the week 2, we use the reality or reaction decision tree when something distressing comes to mind. The focus of this activity to teach logical thinking and evidence gathering before reacting. And the feedback is by evaluate the change in emotional response between 1 to 5 scale. For the week 3, we need to write 3 entries in the positive reframing journal. The focus is to train the mind to seek balance and positive perspective. And the feedback, we can get it by record changes in mood or self-confidence. And lastly, for the week 4, we need to test the combination of all tools together in a routine way. The focus is to assess the effectiveness of the tool combination. So we can get the feedback by us friends or family if there is a change in Sarah's attitude. And the next slide is about question 6, which is about introduction to argument and reasoning, empathy stage. Right now, Sarah is struggling with social media addiction, fear of missing out, and social comparison. Also declining academic performance, and lastly, stress and anxiety. So the argument purpose is to protecting your mental health. Sarah herself is experiencing negative effects, so Marcus' criticism may have a basis for her to consider. And core motivation. Concern over the rise in Yo's depression. Sarah can see Marcus as trying to help, not control her life. Target audience, Yo's parents, policy makers. Sarah is the main target, so she needs to evaluate this argument based on her own reality. Context factor. Studies show the link between social media and mental stress. Sarah is living proof that this problem is real. So the next slide is about stakeholder mapping. Stakeholder, firstly about Sarah or Yo's reception of Marcus' premise, feels pressure but does not want to be restricted from social media. Sarah may be defensive because she relies on social media for identity and social connections. Parents agree if it helps the child be more focused and healthy. Sarah's family may support the restriction proposal to aid her emotional recovery. And lastly, about policymakers, see it as an extreme proposal but relevant for study. A more balanced policy can support healthy learning for Sarah and her peers.
Now, we are looking at the complex issue of social media use and mental health through the eye of 4 key stakeholder groups. We use an empathy map to understand what these groups are saying, thinking, feeling, and doing regarding this topic. First, let's look at the youth themselves, represented by Sarah and Marcus. Sarah says, "I need social media to connect." Her core feeling is fear. She thinks, "I fear being left out or losing friends." This fear drives her behavior. She scrolls non-stop and compares herself, leading to her feeling left out or less confident. Marcus says social media is dangerous for our mental health. He takes more critical stance. He thinks restrictions help avoid depression and present a firm argument. He is concerned and worried about his friend. This shows a clear split. One user sees social media as vital connection, the other sees as mental health hazard. Next, we examine the group responsible for setting boundaries, parents and policymakers. Parents says, "My child has a lot of pressure because of the phone." They are driven by the thought that more control equals healthier. Their primary emotion is worry about the youth development. This results in them monitoring and setting time limits. Policymaker says, "We must protect the youth." They think restriction must be balanced, which make the worry of youth reaction. Their action is proposed a digital literacy and safety policy. In this section, we are in the defined stage of our process. We are taking a hard look at the validity of common argument against social media, an argument that our stakeholder Zara is likely hearing. This slide breaks down 4 major problems with that argument and explain why these flaws are important to Zara's experience. Let's walk through logical fallacies one by one. First, the argument used over generalization. It rates one single statistic like 90 of users feel negative as an absolute truth for all young people. This is a classic logical leap. Why does this matter to Zara? It blocks her rational choice. It demands an extreme ban for everyone instead of trusting her to find a personal measure and approach. Second is the causation fallacy. The argument confuses correlation with causation. It says people use social media and people feel bad and assume one must be direct cause of the other. This is a problem for Zara because if social media isn't the sole cause of her stress, then just deleting it won't fix everything. This argument ignores all the other stress factors in her life. Third, it presents a false dilemma. It gives her black and white, either or choice. Either ban social media entirely or suffer. It completely ignores the possibility of moderation. This forces an extreme choice on her and prevents her from finding a sustainable middle ground, which is probably what she actually needs. And finally, there is a total lack of counterbalance. The argument focuses on the harm. It ignores any potential benefit or nuance, like the connection and community that Zara herself says she needs. This is critical because it prevents a rational decision. To make an informed choice, Zara needs to complete picture the pros and the cons. So, as we can see, the argument that pushing Zara to simply quit is highly flawed. The key takeaway is that these flaws are not just academic. They directly impact Zara by pushing her towards an extreme, all or nothing solution. Alright, this is the how we might slide. This is our pivot from problem to solution. This is how we are going to help Zara build her critical thinking. We have got 5 big questions. First, how do we get her to see the social media isn't pure poison? How do we separate correlation from causation? This is critical so she can believe moderation is even possible. Next, she's on her phone 6 to 8 hours a day. That is an addiction. So how we might design a digital wellness routine to purposely replace the time and directly combat the anxiety. Then, there's FOMO. We need to neutralize it. How do we create practical thinking habits? This is how we turn those awful recurring thoughts like I must check my phone into calm, actionable habits. We also need to shift her entire reward system. How do we get her to value real-world success like better grades, better rest over the next highlight reel? And the final, most important question, how do we help her redefine success? How do we get her self-worth to come from her actions, not from likes and comments? This is the end game. This is what builds real, internal, resilient and make her emotionally independent. So, these 5 questions are our roadmap. They lead us straight to the solution that will build her confidence and ultimately her freedom. Alright, we have spent enough time defining the problem and tearing apart the bad argument. It's time to pivot to solution. We are in the ideate stage and we have built a powerful toolkit for our user Zara. We cannot just tell her to feel better, we have to give her actionable strategies. We have got 5 tools that help her map out her argument and reboot her mindset. Let's dive right in. The first thing we give her journaling evidence. Why? Because she needs to get all the messy, anxious thoughts out of her head and onto the page. She needs to identify those negative loops before she can break them. Next, feedback from trusted peers. This is non-negotiable. She cannot build her confidence alone. She needs a safe place to test her new ideas, get validation and practice speaking her mind. It's her rehearsal room. Then we introduce the heavy hitter, the CBT thoughts record. This isn't just journaling, this is clinical. It's quick, structured way to interrupt her anxiety and ask, is this thought 100% true? And what's the evidence? It short-circuit distorted thinking. Moving on, we teach her reframing. This is simple but effective. It is about changing the story. Instead of saying, I fail, she learned to see this is learning opportunity. It is how she built optimism day to day. And finally, to keep it all from being overwhelming, we use SMART goal tracking. SMART. This ground the whole process. We take that huge scary goal of being less anxious and break it into small, specific, achievable wins that she can check off every single week. It builds momentum. Okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. We are in prototype stage. We are not just talking about good ideas anymore. We are testing them. This map shows us how Zara takes and thought and flips it from something invalid to something healthier. Look at the starting point, her explicit conclusion. There's no point trying again. I will just fail anyway. That's a total shutdown, and logically we mark that as invalid. Then we look at her deeper hidden feeling, the implicit conclusion. Now, no one believes in me when I fail. This is the root anxiety, and we see it's weakly supported. It is based on emotion, not fact. So, how do we fix it? We hit her with evidence support and logical validity. For evidence, I once helped my group complete a project successfully. That's a strong fact. We use that to smash the idea that she always failed. Logic, one mistake doesn't mean I cannot improve. That's a fundamental truth. We validate it as logical. All of the groundwork leads to the most important part, the reframe option. We change the negative story to I can use this experience to learn and become better. That shift is powerful. It turns a paralyzing failure into a useful lesson. The core takeaway here is that we are not arguing with her. We are helping her argue with herself using facts and logic. We are replacing her panic button with a learning button. And that reframed thought, that is the healthy conclusion that moves her forward. Okay, this is the so what slide. This is our decision metric prototype. It's all about making the choice clear and showing her the real stakes. We are essentially giving Zara fork in the road. Path A is the easy one. She just accepts that negative thought. I am failure, and the impact is exactly what you expect. Low motivation, low self-worth is a dead end. The only action is to fight it. But path B is the game changer. She decides to focus on the learning process, not the bad result. The impact here isn't just feeling better, it's growth mindset. It's building resilience. The action is simple, daily reflection and positive thinking. And this is what our prototype goals are about. We are not trying to boil the ocean here. The short-term goal is just to get her to recognize the negativity when it starts. To pause and say, wait, is this really true? And use real evidence instead of just emotion. Because if she can do that in short term, the long-term goal just happens. She will build automatic positive habit. It becomes her new default. She will have the long-term resilience and emotional stability we have been aiming for all along. So this matrix isn't just a plan, it's the blueprint for turning this small daily choice into permanent healthier mindset.
Question 10. Counter-argument development. Test stage. Marcus argument. Social media is entirely harmful to mental health and should be banned for people under 25. The counter-argument is social media is not entirely harmful to mental health. When used responsibly, it can promote emotional support, social connection, and educational growth. Instead of banning it completely, people should be educated on healthy and balanced uses to reduce negative effects. There are 3 objectives of this test plan. First, test clarity and logic of the argument against a total ban. The method is scenario survey and discussion. Gather feedback on arguments, structure and reasoning. The target group is peers and counselor. This is for general review. The format is focus groups and forms, written and discussion feedback. The expected outcome, improved argument structure, clear, logical and easy to understand. The second objective is check solution feasibility. Prototype testing. Assess 2 to 3 specific behavior changes. The target group is university students. This is to ensure practical for their lifestyle. The format, rating scale 1 to 5. This is for clarity, logic and persuasiveness scores. Expected outcome for this objective is viable solutions identified. Realistic and adopted strategies confirmed. Lastly, refine emotional impact to counteract Zara's negative thought. The method is qualitative feedback. Focus on emotional resonance and reframing effect. The target group is distressed peers. This is to verify therapeutic value against anxiety or FOMO. The format is argument slides with example. Testing presentation effectiveness. Lastly, the expected outcome. Impactful reframing. Language optimized for self-compassion and mindful usage. Success metrics. There are 4 criteria for this success matrix. First, logical validity. The measurement method is percentage of subject matter experts, counselors or educators who agree the counter arguments is free of critical logical fallacies and is well supported by evidence. The target score or the outcome is 19% and above. The second criteria is solution acceptance. Percentage of the target audience who rate the proposed solution, mindful moderation, as more effective than either Zara's current addiction or Marcus' total ban. The outcome is 75% and above. The third criteria is reframing efficiency. Percentage of peers experiencing distress who report the counter argument provide a helpful alternative perspective to Zara's specific negative thought. The outcome is 65% and above. Lastly, actionability. The measurement method is percentage of university students who rate the suggested behavioral change as highly realistic and easy to implement in their daily life. The target score is 17% and above. Feedback and iteration. There are 4 sources for this feedback and iteration. First, Zara or the user. The measurement method is found the proposed solution to passive. Needed clearer action to combat FOMO. The revision or improvement made. Added clear actions. Scheduled check-ins and intentional content curation. The second source is mental health experts or the counselor. Question the scientific basis for claiming healthy use is universally possible for those with addictive tendencies. The revision is strengthened evidence, cited CBT and neuroplasticity studies for digital habits. The third source is peers. Felt the argument didn't directly address or invalidate the feeling of everyone else is happier than me. The improvement made is integrated reframing. Focus on content curation and real-life achievement. The last source is university administrators. The measurement method is suggested the solution required more systemic support beyond just individual efforts. The revision is included systemic support. Propose campus workshops and accessible mental health resources. Final counter argument. A total ban is unnecessary because social media itself isn't the problem. It's just a tool. Banning it removes benefits and fails to treat the root cause, Zara's anxiety and poor usage habits. The real solution is teaching Zara mindful digital mastery. This involved using CBT principles to change her negative thought patterns like FOMO and control her usage. Okay. The conclusion. The design thinking methodology effectively yields two main outcomes. Personal wellness solution. An intervention framework was successfully prototyped to help Zara recognize and interrupt her unhealthy thought patterns, complete with a test protocol for long-term refinement and sustainability. Argumentation refinement. The critical evaluation of Marcus' argument exposed logical fallacies, thought interactive testing. A refined counter-argument was developed, proving that a nuanced, evidence-based stance focused on digital literacy and regulation is more persuasive and logically sound than an absolute ban. This exercise demonstrates the power of design thinking to provide a structured, empathy-driven approach to complex problems. It successfully integrated critical and creative thinking skills to deliver both of practical personal solutions for digital wellness and a method for developing robust testing argument. That's all from us.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.